listening to 90.7 FM WKGC, Panama City.
From WKGC Public Media, this is ReelTalk, the place where you can join the cinematic conversations frame by frame each week. I'm your host, R.L. Terry. If movies are your thing, give us a ring, 850-772-6803 to join the discussion on air, or you can text the show at 850-329-8936. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Today we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of Billy Wilder's masterpiece Sunset Boulevard, which is still capturing the eyes, hearts, minds, and souls of audiences today. It continues to stare into the soul of Hollywood, and perhaps uncomfortably, into the faces of all those people out there in the dark. Wilder's mordant masterpiece starring Gloria Swanson as Norma Desmond endures not only because of its sharp wit, noir elegance, and unforgettable performances, but because it remains a mirror for an industry and an audience forever tempted to trade substance for novelty. Joining me today for our celebration of the 75th anniversary of Sunset Boulevard is returning guest and friend of the show, film critic and award-winning musician, Gino Sassani. Welcome back to the show, Gino.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I enjoyed being here. Hope everything's going well for you.
Yes, it is. Very excited, particularly after you and I were able to watch the 4K release, which is coming out very soon, of Sunset Boulevard. So for those of you that love collecting physical media, and if you're a fan of Sunset Boulevard, definitely one that you may want to look for because it looks gorgeous. I love how grayscale films, particularly noir films, look in 4K. So I'm so glad we had an opportunity to do that together, Gino. For those of you who may have missed Gino on previous episodes, he's the editor-in-chief of UpcomingDiscs.com, a member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association and board member of the Critics Association of Central Florida, of which I too am a member. Here at the top of our retrospective celebration of the masterful motion picture, Gino, why do you feel that Sunset Boulevard still captures, strongly I might add, our attention today?
I think because the characters are so real. You have to look at Gloria Swanson's performance, and it was over the top, but it was over the top in a way that you had an emotional connection to her. I think of stars today, you still see that. I think you see the people who can't adjust to something that happens. When silent films came left, many actors and actresses couldn't cope with it. So I think it's the characters. I think it's her character. I think it's Gillis to a slighter, less degree, and quite honestly, Eric Van Schoenhem.
Yeah.
I think he was wonderful as well. So to me, it's characters. To me, it's a wonderful character study, and character studies never go out of style, no matter what era we're in.
I like how you put that. Characters never go out of style. Smartly, strongly created and developed characters never do. For me, and as I'll probably point out a couple of times throughout the show, for me, this is the film that I rank as the greatest of all time. I've held that opinion for many years since I was introduced to Sunset Boulevard, and it continues to hold that spot. And a lot of it is, the richness of the film that we're going to talk about today. I think for me, why it continues to grab our eyes and our ears today is in part its satire of Hollywood then, which you can apply to the mediascape today, whether that's traditional Hollywood or social media, television, streaming, you fill in the blank, a lot of the arguments that Wilder makes in here through his characters can be applied to those areas today. And so for that, it still feels very eerily prescient in our era when algorithms decide what stories are worth telling and how studios recycle intellectual property like celluloid scraps. Watching it now, I feel one realizes the film is not merely a relic of old Hollywood cynicism. It's really an indictment of the complacency of contemporary audiences and the short-term greed of the modern industry. Sunset Boulevard has not grown old. It's the world around it that has refused to grow up. And,
I definitely think that's true, and I don't know that people pay attention to characters anymore. There's very few directors out there that really pay attention to characters. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan for that. I think he really pays attention to the characters on the screen. He was one of those guys, he didn't need a lot of dialogue. No. It's a character study, and if you can do a good character study, it'll be good forever.
And Norma captures that about midway through the film. We didn't need dialogue; we had faces, which is like what you said. Speaking of Clint Eastwood, is and you probably know this, Gino, because you and I like a lot of the same films. I watched Tarantula on Svengoolie this past Saturday night, and one of the notes that Sven had for us was an uncredited Clint Eastwood at the very end of Tarantula in the jet fighter, calling I think it's one line, two lines maybe. That's Clint Eastwood in the jet fighter, and I thought, how cool is that? So I had no idea that he was uncredited in that movie.
Yeah, he's a lab assistant uncredited in Revenge of the Creature as well.
Oh, I did not know that either. Thank you very much for that. So I love learning.
Movies you started with.
I love learning those fun facts behind movies, and it just goes to show that you can still learn something from movies that are 75 years old. They're still teaching us today, whether it's fun facts or it's a lot of what we're going to talk about on our show today, celebrating Sunset Boulevard. Aside from the line I quoted at the onset of the show, all right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. One of the other most famous lines from the film, and one that regularly shows on most memorable lines lists, is Norma's claim and lament, "I am big. It's the pictures that got small." In what ways has the scale of film changed since 1950, Gino? Think big screens, budgets, theatrical experience versus streaming. What are your thoughts on that and what the film has to say?
Well, you said it right there. Budgets. I mean, they throw so much money at a film now. They take big chances now. A film's got to make almost $1 billion to be considered a success anymore. And I don't think that I think there are still a lot of these small films made, but they're not made in the major studios anymore. I think you have to go to like Focus and A24 and Neon and places like that to see a movie that still captures this kind of an idea. But today, it's all about putting butts in the seats, and they don't care. Originality doesn't matter. Let's go through anything we can. Sequel to this, sequel to that, sequel to this, and I think that there's a lack of creativity in major Hollywood. But again, you go to the smaller studios, and some of them are doing things. Nobody so far as great as this movie, but some people are doing these exact things still, and I'm hopeful that will continue. And streaming, while I'm not a big streaming fan, as you know, I guess I'm a little bit hopeful that because there's an extra avenue there, somebody might take a chance and do something and not so much worried about, can I sell it out 6 times a day, for 4, 5, 6 weeks. Yeah.
I think the exchange between Betty Schaefer, played by Nancy Olson, who is still with us, by the way, listeners.
Yes.
Nancy Olson is still with us and still giving interviews, done a lot of interviews for the 75th anniversary of Sunset. The exchange between Betty Schaefer and Bill Holden, Joe Gillis, in Sheldrick's office is when he's pitching his story out of the baseball picture. And Nancy Olson, Betty Schaefer comes in and she says, of course to Sheldrick, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was any good. And then his reply is, she says, I just think a picture should say a little something. And then he replies, one of the message kids, just a story won't do. And I think that's changed today, that I feel, Gino, when I look out on what is released, whether it's wide releases, limited, or just a streaming, it doesn't matter, that we're losing those great timeless stories in exchange for whatever is important at the time, whether that's important to that specific filmmaker or important to a particular idea in the cultural zeitgeist, popular culture at the time. And instead of just telling a great story in which you're weaving the thoughtful themes or thoughtful subtext or weaving social commentary in the film, that has since become the story. And it's just like we start with, what social commentary do I want to make a film about? And I'll create characters and a plot around that idea. Instead of starting with the great idea, starting with the characters, and then finding a way of smartly getting that in there. The former, in my opinion, the movie is only ever going to be about that one thing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, years down the road, it's only ever going to be about that one thing. But if you start with the plot, if you start with the characters, and then find a way of weaving your thoughtful subtext or social commentary into it, then not only can it be about that one thing at the time it's released, 10 years down the road, it may be read to be about something differently, which gives it a new shelf life. Right. I think the movies that are being released today don't have the shelf life. They do not have the staying power that films of the generation of Sunset Boulevard did, because we got another big film coming out celebrating 75 years, All About Eve, in October. And so these are films that stay with us. And I think that's in part what has changed. It is the scale's actually gotten much smaller because we're aiming at specific ideas or specific groups and hoping that it catches on. What do you think about those ideas?
Well, here, I think what you touched on here is something that occurred to me as I was watching it, and that was, she's bemoaning the fact that, her era. Movies have changed so much, and now it's all about the sound. Well, guess what? We're in that transition today because now it's not about the sound, it's about the special effects. Yeah. It's about the CGI. It's about we can put on screen anything we want to see now. It doesn't matter. We can you describe it, and we can put it on celluloid now. Or not celluloid anymore, digital, but we can put it on screen. And so I think there are probably performers today that might feel as she does, is that maybe this business swept me by because, now it's all about the special effects. And what do? I'm running from this, something that's not even there. And I think some of them probably have that same transition issues. And I think that's why you're seeing more big stars going to like Netflix television shows, big television shows, because they want to go somewhere where they can do a story, they can do something that's meaningful anymore. They don't want to just run around from, dinosaurs. I mean, I love these movies, don't get me wrong. But I think that's happened as well, as I think directors and actors and all have had to transition into another kind of filmmaking, as she had to, try to learn to transition into a sound. She hated sound. Yeah.
I think it's not caving to whatever the flash in the pan is at the moment, because good stories will continue to resonate with us all throughout the decade, because their success isn't it's not predicated by whatever the special effects are. You mentioned that. I think it's a very important point to make, that we're focused. Story and characters are eternal. But these other things, they're tools that may not work for this story a decade down the road. And so while those are, I love even well-crafted CGI, even though I badmouth it a lot, there's nothing wrong with it. It's when it becomes the star. That should not be the star of your movie. Your star should be the characters that are bringing this story to life, that we can hopefully, that will hopefully continue to be with us as time goes on. While this film was commenting on the state of Hollywood at the time, much like you and I are commenting on the state of Hollywood today, the film deals with the dark side of celebrity and the pursuit thereof in 1950. How does this film's portrayal of Hollywood, Gino, compare with the real Hollywood and the filmscape today? We've touched on this a little bit already, but a bit more. I want to dive a little bit more deeply into this. So, what is it saying about Hollywood and the film landscape today?
Well, Well, I think that the big thing you have to understand is, we went from, in those days you had the studio system.
Mm-hmm.
And when the studio system changed, we went into sort of the era of the big star on their own, because they could go work wherever they want. Now, some people still do that. We talked about Clint Eastwood. I don't think he's ever done a movie for anybody but Warner Brothers. So he's a holdback to that old Hollywood, I would suppose you'd say. But I think that today people's acting careers can last longer. I don't think that the Gloria Swanson situation exists quite as much today because, now they de-age you. They talk about special effects now, now they put, Indiana Jones, they put Ford up there and he looks like he did 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I bet you she would have loved technology like that.
Mm-hmm.
But today's, I hate being cynical, I really do. But sometimes I get very cynical because when I go to these movies and I see what people are doing, I pine for the old Hollywood because today it's all about box office, and it was, I'm sure, then as well.
Mm-hmm.
But today it's all about box office, like you said. It's not about characters. It's about social type of things. As soon as you hear about a movie, you hear, well, we're going to cast this kind of a cast. It's like, I'm not hearing anything about the story. I'm not hearing anything about the movie. I'm hearing about what types of diversity you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the Oscars feed into that now with their new rules.
Mm-hmm.
A movie should be organic. Mm-hmm. And I don't find movies organic anymore. But when you watch Sunset Boulevard, that movie is dripping organic. It just really is. That movie you can get into that more than I can get into a Jurassic World movie. And I can watch and love a Jurassic World movie, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. But
Hollywood is too much based on, right now, and like you said, 2 weeks from now, it's something else coming along. Yeah. Then in another week, especially summertime, every other week there's a big blockbuster coming along, and we use these as disposable movies. And movies weren't so disposable then.
No.
And they are now. Now it's like, okay, get out there, do your theater run, and video home life, I guess. But otherwise, I'm not saying that it's bad now. I'm saying that I would love to see more aspects of those days come back, but of course they're not going to.
Yeah, if you were to take a look at Sunset Boulevard, in the motivation, Billy Wilder had he and Charles Brackett to write the story. They wrote a story that was unpopular. This was going against the grain of Hollywood at the time, against popular culture at the time. This was going against virtually everything measurable out there. And today we don't see that. We see, as you said, feeding in to what's popular now, feeding into what has been deemed important now. We're feeding into these, and the movies are disposable. He may not have known that he was creating a masterpiece, but I'm confident that Billy Wilder knew what he was making. He knew he was making an important picture. I'm glad it became a masterpiece. I think at the time he knew he was making an important picture, and it was something that he was able to foresee decades ahead. And that's in part why this movie still plays very well today. It takes place in 1950, but you can apply these arguments because the struggles that the characters faced back then, those are the same types of struggles that we have today. And he did not allow the studio system to dictate to him the type of picture that he was going to make or who had to be in it. He started with the character, faded silent film star, and then he built his story around that, and he challenged the very system that created him. Louis B. Mayer famously said something to the effect of, "Are you crazy? You're biting the hand that feeds you. You're going to be run out of Hollywood." And so at the screening, he had all kinds of negative criticism for Wilder and Brackett.
He went up to him and called him a son of a,
Yeah.
It was he cursed at him. Wilder used to tell that story about how he cursed at him. He said, "I thought he was going to smack me, but he didn't." No, they were ticked off because it exposed, I think, things that they didn't want people to see.
No, they certainly did not. Well, listeners, you're listening to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, film critic Gino Sassani. This hour, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the landmark motion picture and, in my opinion, the greatest film of all time, Sunset Boulevard. When we come back, Gino and I will continue our retrospective discussion, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.
Moments after Charlie Kirk was shot on a Utah campus, graphic videos of his killing spread widely online.
Social media rewards this kind of extreme content. People aren't just sharing it, they are making money off of it. They're gaining followers off of it.
I'm Elsa Chang, the emotional and political toll of exposure to violent imagery on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Weekdays at 3 p.m. on WKGC.
On This Old House Radio Hour, imagine if your home could produce as much energy as it uses. Our guest was able to do it, and you can too.
When you look over the year, I'm producing more energy than I actually use.
Plus, On Point's Magna Chakrabarty takes us back to our childhood home in Corvallis, Oregon. That's this week on This Old House Radio Hour.
Wednesdays at noon on WKGC.
Welcome back to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, film critic Gino Sassani. This hour, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the landmark motion picture, Sunset Boulevard. Do you have any memories of this film or thoughts on it? Join the discussion this hour by calling 850-772-6803, or you can text the show at 850-329-8936. I want to look at our two central characters, Gino. We have Norma Desmond and Joe Gillis. Swanson was and wasn't Norma. And certainly Holden wasn't a starving artist. But
No, he wasn't.
Much of Swanson is in Norma. And we have even some of William Holden in Gillis. You know, what do these characters have to say about people in creative fields today?
Well, I think that the creative fields, again, they use people at her disposal as well, and I think that's how she feels. And I think that Gloria Swanson, as well as Norma, I think that I think they both feel used up. I think they both feel like nobody appreciates the contributions that they made. Of course, I doubt that Gloria Swanson was a homicidal, crazy person.
She didn't have any people floating in her the pool in her house or bathtub.
Exactly. I'm assuming that's certainly not like her. But I bet you she understood this movie.
Oh yeah.
And that's why it was good for her, because she hadn't worked in almost 10 years before this, And I think that she knew exactly how Norma felt, even if she didn't feel it completely herself. And there's no question when you look at her, she is Norma.
Oh yes.
I mean, they're interchangeable, and not because Swanson's as into it, as far gone as she is, but she's Norma, and I think because she understands exactly what Norma's coming through, and I think that's Wilder's genius. Wilder was good at casting the right people who might have actually been a little bit of a line between who they really are and who the character was.
One of the fun facts that I learned about the film after having read a book called A Closeup on Sunset Boulevard by author Sam Staggs is who was Norma. So if we agree that Gloria Swanson and Norma shared many qualities, to your point, Gino, she wasn't living in the past. She was current. I mean, and she was working. She didn't have any substantive work in a very long time. And you're right. It was about 10 years. But there is an actress, and it's a name that you may know, Gino. I did not know this name at the time that I read the book, but it's film actress Mae Murray, whom did live in the past after her star faded, much like Gloria Swanson, very big star in the silent era, but she did continue to live in the past when her star faded, and was reported to have been incredibly eccentric, wandering the streets of Hollywood, asking for her old photos at photography studios, and so it's we don't have time to go into a deep dive on that, we did have a real life actress who was kind of the prototype for Norma Desmond, this actress named Mae Murray. Had you heard that name before?
I have heard the name and I've heard the stories. I don't know much about her, about what she did or didn't do. But yeah, I've heard the stories. They used to say she haunted the streets.
Yes.
There's actually, if you take any of the ghost tours out there, she's a name that's mentioned there. People think she's still out there haunting. What is it, near Hollywood? The big, way there where the star stuff is. She's but that's the rumor out there. There are people who believe that she still walks those streets and still bemoans, looking for her close up and looking for, her big star part.
And the Gloria Swanson, many don't know this, that she even, after the heyday of the teens and 20s, that she did continue to work radio, television, theater, way up, not that many years before she passed away in 1983, guest appearances on the Carol Burnett Show, Beverly Hillbillies, just to name a couple, movie Airport. So people could still see her. So she proved that the ghosts of your past don't have to haunt you if you keep moving forward, which she did. Even an entrepreneur, owned a technology company, really fascinating woman. A little history here, and Gino, you and I talked about this a bit. Was the role of Norma Desmond was originally offered to, among others, Mae West and Mary Pickford, both turning it down. We would have had totally different movies if Mae West or Mary Pickford had played, particularly Mae West. I think
Mae West would have been horrible.
It would have been terrible, been really campy, probably great material for maybe drag shows, many decades down the road. But other than that, I don't know if we would be talking about Sunset Boulevard in the same light we are today with Gloria Swanson in the role.
She definitely owns the role.
She does. I can't imagine anybody else in that role. I don't feel anybody else could have captured the essence of Norma like Swanson did. Throughout the movie, we witness the psychological breakdown of a woman who's already seriously afflicted with chronic depression and even agoraphobia. And I feel that many actors and even some industry professionals who are not performers can understand what must have been going through the mind of Norma Desmond. And
but you know what?
Oh, go ahead.
Wilder did something smart too. What he did was he didn't just write and with his writer, he didn't just do that. He immersed her in this movie in her own life.
Yeah.
I mean, we have DeMille making a cameo, who had her in films.
Yeah.
And once again, I talk about Eric von Schohan. He directed her. Schohan, he directed her in the movie that turned out to be a disaster.
Yeah.
That was it Queen Kelly.
Queen Kelly.
And so he gave her people who were connected to that. So she wasn't just by herself.
No.
He immersed her in that past of hers. And I think that probably was a smart move.
It was. And we have Queen Kelly. The only footage we have of Queen Kelly is the footage that's in Sunset Boulevard. Listeners, the scene in which we have Norma and Joe watching the movie. We didn't need dialogue. We had faces. Haven't they forgotten what a star looks like? I'll show them again. Yeah, I'll be in your pictures again. The movie they're watching on the screen is Queen Kelly. And Wilder found that footage specifically for this because that's a picture that was shelved. Again, don't have time to go into the story of Queen Kelly, but it's a picture that would have never seen the light of day and in many ways did not, except for its few seconds here in Sunset Boulevard. Additionally, to your point, Gino, being surrounded by those that were truly part of her life. We have at the bridge game, we have Buster Keaton, we have Anna Q. Nielsen, and we have H.B. Warner. And here are real individuals from her life who, their careers kind of went in a similar direction as hers. And we have them all there together. And I love that there is this, as you mentioned earlier, I'm going to use your word, that organic nature. It feels real. It is a work of fiction, but it feels real. The world that Wilder created, the world that Brackett refined through the word and Wilder brought to the screen feels tangible.
Yeah. I agree with that 100%. Like I said, surrounding her with those people was I assume that was a conscious effort of his to bring that reality closer for her.
Yeah, I feel strongly it was. The film critiques the notion of celebrity and star power. Norma's both a tragic figure and a caricature, because there is a campiness, there is a camp sensibility to the film, a healthy level. Where and how, Gino, does the film strike that balance between the two, between tragic figure and caricature, between playing it straight and playing it campy? How and where does that film strike that brilliant balance?
I got to tell you, the best place where I see that balance being struck is when she goes to see Cecil DeMille, and they want to buy her car, but she's convinced this is it now. She's going to get her chance to go into a movie. And I think that whole scene going onto the lot, the way she interacted with those people, the way she interacted with him, I think, to me, that was the perfect alignment of her mania that was going on, and that touch of reality as well. To me, that brought it all together. Not that most people would say, well, some of the parts where you see her stark face and shadow or something with all that pancake on and stuff, and some of her looks, could she give a look?
Yeah, she really could. I think
she could give you a stare that kills. But that scene, for some reason, brings those elements together for me, anyway.
I was going to highlight the same scene, so I'm glad you brought it up, Gino. Yeah, okay. I think that is the scene in which we strike the balance throughout the film, but if we're looking for that seminal moment in which it is the clearest, I agree with you 100%. It is in that sequence of scenes from the time she arrives at the famous Bronson Gate, the Paramount Arch, to the time she leaves. That's where we find this balance. One of the most tragic moments in this sequence of scenes for me is when this is following everybody welcoming Norma back to the studio. Oh, there's Norma Desmond. Oh, it's Norma Desmond. I thought she was dead. Of course, she's only 50 years old. I don't know why all these people thought she was dead. Even though we live a little bit longer today, but I don't think at 50 years old you were dead back in the 1950s. Anyway, so they've all greeted her. Hawkeye, who's up in the rafters, has pointed the spotlight at her. And DeMille. That's
a wonderful moment.
Yes, it is.
It really is.
And what makes it tragic is this, Gino, is when DeMille comes back into the soundstage and he picks up the loudspeaker and he says, Hawkeye, point that light back where it belongs. And my heart breaks for Norma, because the dramatic irony is we know that those cameras in the studio, anyway, are never going to turn for her again. And that was the last time that she would be in the lights at the studio. And it just breaks my heart when because DeMille has a movie to make. I don't hold him at fault. He's got a movie to make. Like he's not wrong in that the light does have to go back to Samson and Delilah, listeners, if you're wanting to know what film he's working on. Samson and Delilah, which was being shot at the time, although the scene that you see in Sunset Boulevard is not a real scene in Samson and Delilah, but that was the real set. They went and shot there, but it's point the light back where it belongs, and I think that's where we have that balance. We see her, that triumphant entry. It's way over the top, and I'm eating it all up, as was she. But what makes it tragic is when because then the reality sits back in, and there's probably any number of us have found ourselves in a similar position in which the lights have faded from our own careers, regardless of what it is. And if your entire identity was wrapped up in whatever that career was, when that the spotlight goes away, perhaps you yourself have experienced a form of psychosis. Perhaps not to this extreme, listeners, but it is because that's something that can go away. What do? It leaves this void in your life. If your, in this case, your celluloid self was everything that you held dear, which is in part what drives her psychosis, is she doesn't really know anything else. And you can always make arguments that that's a product of the studio system. And I said, well, I think it'd be a bit too broad of a statement to make, but certainly would have played a little bit into it. And I mentioned how that scene makes me feel very deeply. There's a lot of scenes in Sunset Boulevard which make us feel deeply. Even watching these characters and this plot unfold today, it on one hand it looks like a different era, but if you look again, a lot of what we're seeing really isn't that far removed from our world today. There's a lot of truisms and truth in the narrative and structure. And speaking of the structure, Gino, the pacing and the scenes, they allow us to feel a greater connection to the picture than a more straightforward story. How do you feel Brackett and Wilder's structure in their narrative allows us to feel that great connection?
Well, I think, first of all, the idea that Gillis, the dead guy, is telling the story. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing that particular perspective, and that gives us, because we see this from Gloria Swanson's perspective, I don't think we get a clear story. I think seeing it from his perspective, because he sees the outside of this, he sees the changes as she's becoming more and more obsessed and thinks, that she's back there again and does that. And I think that makes him feel sorry for her. And I think that is a big part of the structure, is his narration, because he's helping us understand where she is and these things that are going on, but we're also hearing about him. I mean, he's a selfish guy too. He's, she doesn't even know it. He's off trying to write a screenplay, with the better looking girl. And, but the structure itself, it reminds me a little bit of some film noir, I guess, because of the narration. And I think there's some nice shadow work there that may go back to that kind of era too. I like some of the shadow work. I mean, some of the shadow work when her face comes out. Yeah. So I like that. But the structure of the narrative, I think is perfect. Now, we all know that the film wasn't supposed to start where it did. It started, in the morgue. But I think it was a smart idea to keep it where it was, because I think we needed to see the impact of where he was and what was going on. And you can say it gives away the ending, but it doesn't. No. We don't know. Maybe the other girl got jealous and came in and shot him. But
I mean, it's like watching an episode of Columbo. We know who the killer. With Janet Leigh playing
the fading star.
Fading star. And we know who the killer is at the beginning of Columbo. That's not the point of Columbo. The point of Columbo is, how did we get there? How is Columbo going to solve it? And that's what we have here. We start with the ending, but that's not what's important. What's important is everything else that is going to follow thereafter. You talked a lot about the use of lighting, Gino. Yeah. A lot of the lighting that we have in the film, its sets, the shadow work are directly inspired by German cinema. In fact, all of
expressionism in there.
Exactly, noir cinema. Borrows stylistically heavily from German expressionism, German cinema. Listeners, you'll find that a lot in the 1920s with F.W. Murnau, Fritz Lang, and others. The lighting plays an intricate role in the storytelling process of the film, Gino, as you stated.
Especially in that mansion. The lighting and shadows bring that place alive. I mean, it's amazing how strong that the sense of the place that she lives in becomes a character because of lighting and shadow.
Yeah, because if it was more flatly lit, like we have a lot of flat lighting today. Yeah. If it was more flatly lit, it would not feel like a character. It wouldn't feel that this world was a world rich in dimension. It's very tangible, because her house, her mansion, is a mirror of her. That it has the setting has character.
Absolutely, it's an extension of her. Absolutely, you're right about that. That mansion is her.
What are some other takeaways, Gino, on a technical or design level from Sunset Boulevard that upon even our just recent rewatch, upon rewatching it here, what are some of the other technical elements? Because Sunset Boulevard, we often talk about its story, and not just us. A lot of people that talk Sunset Boulevard focus on the story, and they should. It's rich. It's wonderful. But a lot of great technical elements here as well, in addition to the German expressionistic lighting. What are some of those other technical or design elements that jump out at you?
Well, the biggest one is this lighting wouldn't even matter if you didn't have such careful attention to detail to the set to the production design, the actual, sets. I don't know if they did it in a real house. You may have more information about that than I do, but how they set this room up, all the little Easter eggs that are clues to her past life. And I think that they did a great job. I think they, especially with film in those days, I don't think you were expected to even notice as much as we can notice now watching in the 4K. And it stands up to that. So the design of everything there stands up to today's higher resolution scrutiny. And I think that's wonderful, because then the lighting doesn't matter. I think that her costumes.
Edith Head.
I think wardrobe was
Oscar-winning costumes. Edith Head did just a phenomenal job. Actually, Oscar-nominated, because I think Edith Head won for All About Eve, but she was still nominated for the costumes here. The costumes are characters. Yeah. And here's one, and I think I may have mentioned this to you, Gino, when we were rewatching it. We mentioned the encounter with DeMille earlier, and he's wearing those riding crop boots that he's wearing. That's also a sign of a bygone era, because at that time, directors weren't dressing like that. So even though he was still working, this is Wilder's nod to, hey, it's not only our star here who's living in the past. At the time, DeMille was making these sword and sandal epics. Now, Ten Commandments, great film, comes out in 1956. Samson Delilah. These are still great films, but it's also, he's still riding the wave of an earlier career, and he's dressing the part. And so even the manner in which he's dressing is outmoded. And I like how if you look closely enough, you see those boots, and you're like, I like what Wilder and Edith Head, did with that design.
Yeah. Well, you see, the reason for that stuff is those used to be symbols of authority.
Yes.
Director was a lot more of a power authority on a set than they probably are now.
Yeah.
And so that's what that was. That was like, he was God.
Yep.
When he was on that set, he was God, and it shows again, like you said, when he tells the guy to take the spotlight off of Norma, he's in control. And I think that the old coach whip or whatever it was they carry around, and the boots, like you said, I think that was the symbols of authority at the time, and I think that was real, but you don't see that anymore.
No.
You'd get laughed at if you showed up like that.
You would. You're listening to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, film critic Gino Sassani. When we come back, we'll continue our retrospective of Sunset Boulevard, celebrating its 75th anniversary. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this break.
Fridays at noon. We're serving up more than lunch. We're serving up soul. Tune in for Friday Fixins, a 1-hour musical feast of R&B, soul, and jazz. It's the perfect way to kick off your weekend, and it's also a sneak peek into what Soulful Saturdays are all about. So grab your plate and pull up a chair. It's Friday Fixins. Every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. on WKGC 90.7 FM. Stream at WKGC.org or ask your smart speaker to play WKGC Panama City. That's Friday Vixens. Tasty tunes for your weekend soul.
Welcome back to Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC. I'm your host, R.L. Terry, and today I am joined by returning guest and friend of the show, film critic Gino Sassani. This hour, we are celebrating the 75th anniversary of the landmark motion picture Sunset Boulevard. If you have any thoughts on the movie or memories of it, give us a call, 850-772-6803, or you can text us at 850-329-8936. I'd like to connect Sunset Boulevard to two other films. One, I would characterize as the Sunset Boulevard of the broadcast media era, and two, the other is a more contemporary director's answer to Sunset Boulevard. The first, the star-studded Academy Award-winning film Network in 1976, also starring Bill Holden, this time alongside Faye Dunaway, and the latter film, 2001's Mulholland Drive by the late David Lynch, starring Naomi Watts. Both of these films are clearly inspired in theme, plotting, character by Wilder and Brackett's Oscar-winning screenplay. So, Gino, where do you see Sunset Boulevard in both network and Mulholland Drive?
Well, that's an easy one. Dialogue. Dialogue. You go to network and that, I'm tired as hell. I'm probably mispronouncing. I'm tired as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You see lines like that in out of Norma.
Yeah.
In Sunset Boulevard.
Very much so.
The same thing in Mulholland Drive. You have the Dan character when he's giving the speech about, look, I'm scared, and he's trying to tell him, that you got this dream and you're part of this place. And it's straight out of the same thing. I think that their dialogue I could probably pick anywhere, and it was a shame that the two of them didn't work together much after that.
Yeah.
Because I think that the two of them, I think Wilder had a great, grasp on human nature and Brackett's words and the way they're directed. You see how the people yelling and screaming in network. You go back there, it's that tired and can't take anymore. That's Norma.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of our characters and dialogue in network very much take inspiration from Sunset Boulevard, and we have the all right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up, or I am big. It's the pictures that got small, and you reference what is inarguably the most memorable line from Network. I'm as mad as hell, and I can't take it anymore, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And it's really echoing a lot of those same arguments that are being made in Sunset Boulevard. Howard Beale's character in Network is this decaying, hard news media guy, and Bill Holden is trying to hold on to that while grappling with all the politics of the then modern day workplace. And so we have those same arguments, and then just Network being both a satire and lament of broadcast media at that time, foreshadowing a lot of what we're dealing with today, just like Sunset Boulevard was both a satire and a lament for ideas then that we are still talking about today.
That's the word used. You're exactly right. They're satires.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're not the over the top obvious satires, but they are satires, and that's true of Sunset Boulevard. It's true of Network.
Yeah.
Mulholland Drive, maybe not so much, but in Mulholland Drive, you see the same kind of atmosphere. Mulholland Drive has more of the atmosphere, I think, of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, it's we have, not only can we see Norma Desmond's Isata Fraschini in Mulholland Drive, and the fact that Mulholland Drive parallels Sunset Boulevard, also a lot of the winding streets and the lighting mirror Sunset Boulevard. We're dealing with an actress, much like we are in Sunset Boulevard. Mulholland Drive, about broken dreams, illusions, madness. You can say those same things about Sunset Boulevard. So, it very much is this modern Sunset Boulevard imagined in only a way that David Lynch could imagine a Hollywood story. And again, it shows why plots and characters are timeless. You can take inspiration from them and talk about something that's important in that day, but not in a way that it's only about that, which is why we can use Sunset Boulevard as a lens today. We can use Network as a lens today. Mulholland Drive, maybe not so much, but I do like what Lynch was able to take from Sunset Boulevard and craft something that was very much stylistically his.
Yes, the style is what I was going to say on that. That's absolutely true. And David Lynch has many times in an interview when he was around had credited Billy Wilder as one of his influences, as one of the directors that he studied and liked and got a lot of, maybe didn't steal ideas from, but that he was inspired by, I should say. So I don't think it's a secret, and I don't think it's a coincidence that movie shares some of that. So if you take the atmosphere from Mulholland Drive and the dialogue from Network, you got Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, I like that. You're right. Take a style from one, the dialogue from the other. I love how you put that. Very, very true there. Sunset Boulevard serves as a reminder, and we've talked about this so much this hour, that cinema's survival depends upon more than just novelty. It thrives on depth and craft and stories that demand to be remembered in ways that can even be reimagined through films like Network and Mulholland Drive. Describe, if you will, Gino, what happens when we let convenience replace artistry. So, social media trends replace great stories, and influencers are used to replace filmmakers and actors.
Boy, I never thought about the last one. No, but again, it goes back to this disposability of it. Mm-hmm. It's not to stand the test of time. I still can go back and read an Siskel or Ebert review. Mm-hmm. Those things are still out there. They're still, relevant. They still mean something. I can't imagine someone's going to go back 20 years and look at what some influencer said about a movie. It's come and gone. Mm-hmm. It's a disposable, you know what I say? It's about, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like instant gratification. You know what's wrong with instant gratification?
It's instant.
It takes too darn long.
Oh, well, okay. That's too.
Well, that's today. We have no attention spans to deal with that. People aren't going to movies and looking for those things, looking at lighting, things we discuss here all the time. Mm-hmm. People aren't looking for those things. I know too many people, if it's black and white, I'm not going to watch it. Yeah. Our society has become way too disposable. Your DVD player, Blu-ray player doesn't work anymore. You're not going to get it fixed. It's not worth it. Just go buy another one. Mm-hmm.
Or just don't have one. There's a lot of people. Well, I've got family members. I will bring Blu-rays and DVDs with me when I'm on extended holiday, and it's like, oh, you don't have a physical media player? Oh, well, I don't want to have to pay to rent that. I own the thing.
Yeah, that's definitely sad. But yeah, I think it all comes down to disposability. Yeah. I think stories are all disposable now. I think the movies are disposable. No one's trying to make something that's going to be a classic 20 years from now. Yeah. All they want is to cash now.
Yeah, they're cashing in on what's novel, what's popular at the time. Hence why we've seen, particularly I'd say in the last 3 to 5 years, Gino, we see influencers as actors, influencers as filmmakers, and they're selected as actors because they have a lot of followers. Just because you have a lot of followers and perhaps you do the influencer thing incredibly well does not also mean that you're an actor, nor does it mean if you can upload YouTube videos that it makes you a filmmaker. I think having the outlets is wonderful. I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube, but when I am, I find a lot of videos that are educational. Even if they're entertaining, I'm learning something from them. So I think it's something wonderful to have, but not if it comes at the expense of taking the place of great cinematic storytelling, because just because you can keep an audience entertained for 7 seconds or 7 minutes, doesn't mean that you can keep them entertained. It doesn't mean that you're a writer. That's not to say that you could not become a writer or that you could not become a director, but just because you can do the one does not mean that you can instantly do the other. But we have an industry that's hiring them as directors, hiring them as actors, thinking that they're going to bring that they've proven themselves to have a lot of followers, and
that doesn't work. That hasn't worked out real well. So I don't know if that model's sustainable, because I don't think it's worked out real well. Can you come up with an example of one of these influencers, someone who went on to actually create
we've got, Mossy Oaks, Shady Oaks, that Chris, what's his face, from the Dead Meat, and he has that Shelby Oak, that's it, Shelby Oak coming out, and a colleague of yours and mine, Sean, in Austin, he and I have been talking about Shelby Oaks a lot, and it is not... it's just the writing isn't there. He says, Sean said it visually looked fantastic, but a lot of these people, they know framing and composition. They're missing that writing and directing element, though, because a lot of what you do on social media, you know how to visually capture people's attention, but that can't be the only thing that draws people.
But I mean, an example of someone who's done this where we know it's succeeded. We don't know this movie's going to succeed yet. Yeah. This is just going on. I don't think that you're going to see a classic movie created in this way. No. A movie that 20 years from now people are still talking about. I don't think it's going to happen.
No, certainly not. Well, there's we're heading to the entering the top of the hour here, Gino. So, but there is a lot to unpack in Sunset Boulevard. We've touched on only the tip of the iceberg. But just in the next minute or so, what are some of the other areas of Sunset that you want to make sure that you highlight on the show today before we begin to wrap it up?
Well, I think that the big thing that we want to is, again, I'll speak about the characters, but the one we didn't talk about a whole lot is Van Schoheim. He reminds me like of a Bela Lugosi times Tor Johnson, and he is such an important part of this movie. And I think he doesn't get enough credit because of Swanson. I mean, it's easy to be overshadowed by her, but if you look at, first of all, his purpose of being there, he's the one who really cares, and he's the one who's trying to live with this, trying to keep her satisfied, try to protect her from the outside world. And of course he fails when, they go see DeMille. And I don't think he gets enough credit, because this guy was a director. He wasn't really much of an actor. He was director. He's another one whose career was
worked with Swanson on films of his.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And by then he was pretty much washed up. I don't know if he directed anything since then. So he's something that I think is little talked about, and I understand why, because you got Holden and you got Swanson, but I love the guy. I thought he delivered a very compelling, a very, very, very good performance. I love his performance.
And the Academy agreed. He got a nomination for Best Supporting Actor out of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, he just, he is the thing that keeps her sane until, Holden comes along and kind of upsets the world a little bit. But he's kept her protected, we're led to believe, maybe for decades.
Yeah. And even going from filmmaker, whose name in the film and in real life was up there with DeMille and D.W. Griffith. And then, he plays he's her husband for a while, and Gloria Swanson in real life did have, I think she had, five or six husbands, 3 or 4 husbands.
She had quite a few.
And so again, we're flirting with reality there, but he's a very important character to the story, and you're right, we don't, talk about him enough. And of course, today's case in point, in my notes, I didn't really have anything about him. But much like even the greatest pictures must eventually allow the credits to roll, we have come to the end of our show today, Gino. But as a special treat, listeners, following the show today, you're going to hear Gloria Swanson sing. Yes, sing. She's going to be singing the flagship song from her musical Boulevard, not to be confused with the Andrew Lloyd Webber Sunset Boulevard starring Glenn Close. She was working on this in the 1950s with Dick Hughes and Richard Stapley, and she was producing and directing it. So listen out for the end of the show today to hear her sing the flagship song, All Those Wonderful People Out There in the Dark. Gino, for our listeners that want to follow your reviews and your music, where can they find you?
Upcomingdisc.com.
Excellent. If you missed any of today's show, or if you want to listen to other past episodes of our shows here on WKGC, we are on a podcatcher near you. Just search for WKGC Public Media on your podcast service of choice. Next week, I will be again joined by Dr. Stephen DeBlasi to count down our picks for top 10 movie songs of the 1980s. Stay tuned for Jazz in a Minor Key with Walter Hill coming up next, followed by All Things Considered starting at 3 o'clock. Thanks to all of you for listening. I hope you'll tune in again next week, same time, same place, for more Real Talk on 90.7 WKGC.
Gloria Swanson is, of course, just about, synonymous with the word star. And this evening, we are honored to present this great personality of both the silent screen and the movies of today in an excerpt from her forthcoming production, a musical version of Sunset Boulevard, written by Dick Hughes and Richard Stapley. And it's the story, as most of you know, I suppose, of Norma Desmond, the great star of silent films who tries to make a comeback.
That wonderful silence comes over the sand, and there are those faces I'll never forget. Hello, Bill. Oh, hello, Johnny. Hello, Kid. All the crew, all the prop men, and the drill. And silence in my eyes is all I can see. But I know the brightness and smiling at me are the ones who silently give me studio? Come on, tell me what it's like at the premiere.
All right. I can tell you how it will be. There'll be spotlights spanning the sky, and the policemen parting the crowd so you can get by. And they all will cheer when they see that it's you, and they'll lift you up high on a wave of shouts that will never seem to die.
You're listening to 90.7 FM WKGC, Panama City.